I'm Doug Richardson, and this is photography the way I see it. Hey YouTube, I'm Doug Richardson, and welcome again to Photography the Way I See It. Today we're going to talk about composition. Where do I put my subject? I mean, I realize there's times out there if you're shooting an event or shooting something that's going on, you don't have much of a choice. You just have to shoot what's there, and it is what it is. But when you're taking, whether it be a portrait or a scenic photo or something like that, you do have some control over where you put the subject. And I can't tell you countless amounts of times through the years just being out in public and hearing people say, hey, that's not centered. That picture is not centered. Look, they took these pictures and look, it's not centered. Actually, in most cases, the center is the worst place for the subject. Okay, let me explain. There's a thing called rule of thirds. If you think of a tic-tac-toe board, I think I got one right here. Just so happen to have one laying here. If you look, this represents the photograph here, okay? The worst place for your subject is right there, okay? You want to try to keep your subject at the intersecting points. Again, there's always exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, this is a good guideline to go by. You want to keep your subject at where these points intersect in that vicinity, okay? The vertical lines represent a third this way, and the horizontal lines represent a third that way. But this is what you're faced with. Now, if you can keep this image in your mind here, just kind of get this embedded in your mind, and I'm going to insert some photos here for you to look at while I'm talking, and you see that if rule of thirds doesn't apply to most of them, if not all of them, okay? But one thing to keep in mind, whether you're photographing a building or a castle out in the wilderness, some of these tours and they take you on these big excursions and you see these big castles and everything. Wherever what you would consider the front of your subject, that needs to go face the center. Okay? If you, for example, let's say you're photographing a home and you're going to offset it a little bit so you can show a little bit of scenery off to the home. You don't want to put the home over here and have the front of the home facing this way. If you're going to do that, you need to try to put that home over here so that it faces inward. My rule of thumb is your subject always faces inward, not outward, unless there's some kind of a special circumstance. So keep this thing in your mind and keep what I just told you in your mind and see how it applies to the photos that you're going to be looking at here. Okay? Okay, so the first photo is a photo of a lighthouse. This is a lighthouse that I photographed back in, I believe, about 2006 or so. Me and a buddy of mine went on a motorcycle trip up to Maine. And I took multiple photographs, but this one, if you look at it, the lighthouse itself is just a shade off of center. It's almost in the center. And that is the part that sticks up. I'm not talking about the whole house. I'm talking about the tower. My eye, the way I look at this, is I look at the lighthouse and the light tower as one unit. And that unit is slid over to the left. Okay? And your eye, how you can tell you got good composition is if you look at a photograph and your eye goes into that photo and wanders around, that's good composition. If your eye goes straight to the subject and stays there, then your composition is off. Now, when I look at this photograph, I look at the lighthouse, but my eye is also taken off into the ocean onto the right. Okay? That's the first photograph. And another thing, too, if you notice, the lighthouse itself is slightly above center. I try to stay away from centers, whether it's left to right or top to bottom or however. So if you look at that lighthouse, it's left of center and then top of horizontal center. Okay, if you follow these rules, you'll be surprised how much better your photographs would look. Okay, this next picture, I've had some local people, I haven't had actual comments, but I've had some local people wonder what the picture was behind me up in the corner on the wall. I used to have a Harley, and that's me and my Harley. So this picture of me and my Harley that I took with a tripod, if you notice, obviously I'm the subject. I'm off to the right in the right third, okay? I'm slightly, if you look at me and the bike as a unit, okay, I'm slightly below center. And then the covered bridge is in the background, and it's not centered either. It's over on the left. So I avoided center at all costs right there, and being that I'm a person and I'm facing to my right, photo left, I guess you could say, I'm facing the center of the picture. So when I look at this photograph, my eye goes in and it wanders. So there's yet another example. Okay, the next picture was on the same main trip before. Now this is just simply a sailboat, and I'm not much of a boat person, but I assumed that the front of the boat was the part that I figured as the front of the boat, and then I realized the hull numbers was on there, so I saw those. But the boat is in the lower left-hand portion of the picture, and my eye goes to the boat and then goes right on back and out the picture to the right-hand side. If I'd have put that boat dead center, my eye would have went dead center and stopped. And then I'd have lost it. The photo wouldn't have had as much meaning. Okay, the next photo is the birds flying across the sunrise. Most people, and I've done this just for different effects, but for the most part, most people would put that sun right in the middle of the picture. Well, if you look at it, there's birds flying across the bottom of that picture. Okay, so you got those birds there. The sun is slightly off center. It's over towards that left third. And it allows your eye to go in, look at the photograph, and continue on right off the other edge of the picture. It lets you your eye just goes in and wander. If it doesn't wander, you got to wonder. Okay? So, and then the last photo is more of a portrait. This is a firefighter. This was a senior picture taken of a firefighter, volunteer firefighter. And if you look, his face is to the right of center, but if you look at his face and his body as a whole, he has shifted off to the left. And when I look at that photo, my eye goes right to him and wanders back into that left corner. Okay, so keep your subject out of the center. Like I said, sometimes you do portraits and stuff if the person's face is right in the center, but you also got their body going out one side of the picture. So it offsets the fact that their face is in the center. You don't want them sitting like I am in the center of this photograph, of this video. Okay, but if they're going to be turned one way or the other and coming in from one side, and their face happens to be in the center, then that would be one of those exceptions. But basically, that is rule of thirds. That's composition. Stay away from the center. And the next episode is, assuming I stay on schedule, next episode will be about how to use a flash. It can be easy, but can also be complex, just depending on what your lighting situation is and what you're trying to do. So thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you on the next episode of Photography the Way I See It. Have a good day.